Organizations are prioritizing artificial intelligence to improve their business, better serve customers, and boost sales. But AI is only as good as the data that it has to work with. And when the data in question is fragmented across multiple systems, creating that long desired single view of the customer remains a big challenge. Hi, everyone. My name is Jim Malone. I'm a senior content strategist working with CIO Marketing Services. Welcome to this webcast, sponsored today by Salesforce. We've got a pair of experts on hand to discuss the importance of having a strong data foundation to improve sales processes and the role of AI in accelerating innovation and growth. You'll also hear how MuleSoft, with Salesforce Data Cloud, supported by NTT DATA, can activate your customer data with proper governance, security, and monitoring to improve sales processes and the effectiveness of your sales team. We've got a lot to cover, so without further ado, let's meet our speakers. First up, let's welcome Christine Uli, who's Senior Director for Product Marketing at Salesforce. Hi, Christine, welcome. Tell us a little bit about your work at Salesforce.
Hi, Jim. Thank you so much for having me today. I lead our messaging and content for MuleSoft here at Salesforce, focused on the power of bringing your data together to take advantage of AI and new technology. So really excited to talk through that today with you all.
Excellent. Thanks so much for being with us, Christine. Now let's say hello to Paul Kersey, who's CTO for Apicero with NTT Data. Paul, welcome. Thanks so much for being with us. Tell us a little bit about Apicero and your role there.
Yeah, thanks, Jim, and thanks for having me. I'm Paul Kersey, CTO of Apicero. We are a part of NTT Data. I lead and oversee our technology solutions and services strategy for the company when it comes to both MuleSoft and Salesforce. And looking forward to speaking today a little bit about how integration and data can help enable AI and customer experiences.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Paul. Really happy you could be with us. Looking forward to both comments today. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to point out there's a lot more resources and assets from our sponsor on today's topic in the resources section of your player. You can download those resources and take a really deep dive into this topic. So we highly recommend you take advantage of that. And finally, a big thanks to our sponsor, Salesforce, for making today's event possible. So let's dive right into our discussion, panelists. And I want to start with you, Christine. And let's look at the current state of integration that's driving the much sought after customer 360 data nirvana that we've talked about for so long. But Christine, if you would, can you start with a quick definition of what we mean by integration in this context?
Sure, and great question. So here at MuleSoft, we surveyed over 1,000 IT leaders in our connectivity benchmark report, and we found that customers struggle with a complex web of siloed systems and data. And for those tuning in, I'm sure this sounds familiar to you and your own landscape. We found that the average enterprise has 991 systems, with only 28% of those systems connected. And so when systems are integrated, usually it's via a variety of tools, which ends up creating a complex, heterogeneous integration landscape, which is costly to maintain. And with all of that data sprawl, securing that data becomes even more difficult. And that's why we find that actually 1/4 of all APIs go unmanaged. So to answer your question, integration, the way we look at it, is bring all of that siloed data together to create a composable model that helps our customers stay agile and create new experiences across that siloed data.
Paul, I think we're all familiar with a lot of the challenges that arise from these kind of disparate systems, the silos, et cetera. Talk a little bit about some of the challenges specific to the sales processes that you're seeing in the market. And we don't have to limit ourselves to the Salesforce, but let's start there. But just in general, what are some of the challenges that are coming from this?
Yeah, I think it's around the composability that Christine mentioned, right? It's been a common challenge for a while now where we have data, dispersed across multiple systems. So when you think about something like a customer, that customer data is actually spread across multiple systems. And to identify that customer is different across those systems. And not to mention the engagement data across those systems are all differently held and held in a different way. So how do we bring that together in a meaningful way? And for a while now, that's been the integration challenge. That's what we've helped our customers with in terms of how do we give a single view of that customer? How do we bring that data together in a meaningful way? And today, it's even more important when we talk about things like AI, to be proactive with that data and do things with that data. How do we bring that together, not only in a meaningful way, but in a more timely way? And that's kind of where we've seen the shift lately between, not only getting that data to be composable, but being timely as well.
Excellent, Christine. We all are familiar with that term, garbage in, garbage out. It seems like in the AI era, it's really that on steroids. It's so important to have your data house in order. Talk a little bit about the importance of that strong data foundation for an artificial intelligence initiative.
Yeah. Well, we've found that your AI strategy is only as good as your data strategy. And 95% of decision makers say that integration is the biggest barrier to them implementing AI. Many of these leaders want to take advantage of AI, but they're bogged down by previous tech debt. So it makes it that much harder to connect, as Paul said, create this single view across all of that data. And again, in over 900 data sources. And so a lot of our customers right now are trying to solve for that first, unlocking that siloed data, creating a composable approach that can then extend to AI. And very specifically, they need to connect that data to fuel their LLMs and create these AI-powered experiences. So it's not too dissimilar from what we've been saying the last few years. It's unlocking that data, surfacing it, and making it discoverable, and creating a composable architecture that allows these companies to scale and be agile and adapt to these new technologies like AI, and specifically generative AI.
Paul, from your perspective at Apicero, what are you seeing as far as the importance of that strong data foundation in your engagements? What are you hearing?
Oh, it's extremely important, right? So I think the fundamental hasn't changed, right? The composability of that data and the single view that we've been talking about, but it's more about the way you use it, right? So, it used to be that we created these integrations for more of give me that data when I need it, right? Facilitating business workflows when I need that data. And so now when we're talking about stuff like AI and using that data in a meaningful way, we need it like sooner than later, right? Like we need it at the time that it happens. So we're kind of seeing that shift between like all this is still relevant, it is still like needed. But how can we leverage all that work that we've done to pull that data in when we need it to allow things like AI to make decisions for us more proactively than reactively? So things like event-driven architecture, it's been around for a while. Everyone knows about it, but it's becoming more important, right? Again, streaming that data. When I click a button on a website, like I want to know about that so I can make decisions around it. So, while everything is still relevant, the way that we collect this data and use this data, like I said, in a more timely way is becoming more and more important.
Paul and Christine, nothing really kind of brings it home or really makes it real than either a use case or a case study. Can you think of any examples in your recent engagements, Paul, that might really help bring this home, make it real for the viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one of the common use cases that we're seeing, especially maybe more in the marketing world, is, around how we can leverage, Data Cloud and Einstein to make, better decisions around the outreach to customers, right? Your current customer base. So as example, when we talked about data, customer 360, and really understanding your customers, we're seeing, people leverage these technologies, not only to leverage the data that's already in your CRM. So as I mentioned, right, you already have a good amount of customer data, accounts, maybe even some of the orders maybe they have done, right? But sometimes what you're lacking is that engagement data. So, think of me as a marketer and, the new product has come out that everybody's excited about. And as a marketer, I'm being asked to, go out and evangelize that. But the thing is, like, how do I find the customer base that would be excited about that new product? And so, today it takes a lot of time to go through these different systems to look at customer engagement and what they're doing, how are they interacting with your site. So we're seeing, the marketing use case where we're able to integrate these various systems to bring in that engagement data. So now when you're using that data from your CRM and you're using the engagement data that your customers are doing on your site, stuff like that, it allows Data Cloud and Einstein to make better decisions around segmenting that data. So that way you can be more focused on your outreach to those customers, and also outreach to them in a meaningful way based on their interactions on the site to provide that better experience to better, evangelize your product.
And Christine, in your engagements with Salesforce, what can you tell us about how this is playing out in the real world, so to speak?
Oh, yeah. So we have one customer, Jim, that's about 70 years old, and they were underpinned by a tremendous amount of legacy systems and applications that are critical to their day-to-day operations and their revenue. And what that meant with all of that legacy infrastructure was that all too often the information was difficult to access and it wasn't at the fingertips of their employees. They had 38 different billing systems, 30 different warehouse systems, and the list goes on. So they came on board to MuleSoft and Service Cloud to optimize for this. And within 6 months, they started to see that value of bringing the data together. They brought together all of those warehouse platforms, transportation platforms, billing, legacy, and they started to unlock that using reusable APIs. So that was step one, was making that data discoverable, reusable, connecting that data. Now, step two is they're starting to implement AI. So with this single view of the customer, now they've built this data strategy that is really underpinning their Gen AI initiatives. So they're using Einstein to automatically generate replies to customers based on previous case information and knowledge articles. So this is providing that level of personalized experiences to customers. And most of their service agents, 85%, are saying that this AI is providing value to their day-to-day work. And hopefully that gets up to 100% soon as it starts to be more adopted across the company.
And Christine, if I can ask you for a minute to put your MuleSoft hat on, so to speak, talk a little bit about some of the use cases with MuleSoft, Salesforce Data Cloud, NTT Data. What are some real life use cases you can cite?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about Salesforce taking a step back, we use the term the Salesforce Customer 360. And that's really an evolution of our product where we've now developed products across every department. So we have Sales Cloud for our sellers. We have Service Cloud for service agents. We have Commerce Cloud, Marketing Cloud. And most recently, we've developed Data Cloud. Data Cloud is a method of bringing all of your data across different sources together and harmonizing that data to create a single profile for your customer and bringing that data into the Customer 360 across sales, across service, across marketing. Now, again, going back to the point that our average customer has over 900 applications, Data Cloud does have pre-built and native connectors for really common systems. But where MuleSoft comes into play is unlocking the 900. It's your legacy systems, it's your mainframes. And a lot of our customers are struggling with connecting both structured and unstructured data. So for example, take a mainframe that does not actually have APIs supporting it. You would be able to use something like robotic process automation to extract data from that system and surface it into Data Cloud. And so we at MuleSoft, we say we take kind of the Data Cloud value prop, but we expand that across your entire landscape. So you're unlocking everything across those 900 or X number of systems in your business. And again, the applications are endless of this across sales use cases, service use cases, marketing use cases. One very vivid one is sellers, right? They need data at their fingertips, as Paul said earlier, to get a full view of that customer. And it's not only the visibility and the ingress of data into their view, it's taking action on that data. So when the deal is closed, when they need to route information to a downstream system, oftentimes an ERP, we're able to bring them the data and then also orchestrate that data downstream to take action in those systems.
Paul, Christine mentioned APIs in her response. You're with Apicero. Talk a little bit about that piece of the puzzle for today's conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people that maybe already on that API journey has a great opportunity here to leverage those APIs that they've already built, right? To, as Christine mentioned, ingest that data into Data Cloud or something like that to kind of help enable AI. And those APIs still have value today around like still providing different experiences for your customer, like your websites, your mobile, IoT, things like that. So there's still value there. And now you can still leverage those same APIs to ingress that data into Data Cloud to enable something like AI. as well as, maybe put that data back into systems where it needs to be once you, made those decisions, and you, understood what you want to do with that data and how you want to interact with that customer. So I think there's that value there if you've already kind of been on that journey. And if you've not been on that journey, I think something like MuleSoft is a wonderful platform to kind of help create those APIs around those systems that you want to kind of access that data for and maybe interact with your customers in a different way.
So we've talked about kind of the three primary components that we're here to talk about today. That is Salesforce Data Cloud, Apicero, and MuleSoft, and how they work together, integration being so important. Let's talk about the AI component of it. And Christine, let's start with you. Talk a little bit about how artificial intelligence is helping organizations address some of these challenges to improve sales processes and just kind of overall the AI question.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a question that's coming up in almost every customer conversation that we're having today. And the way we framed it is almost in a recipe. So at the highest level, there are 4 things that you need, that every organization needs to put AI to work within their business. It's data and getting access to that data. And we've talked about this. It's a user interface or experience, a model, an LLM, and an outcome. So that data, that unlocked data, hopefully served up and made discoverable, provides all of the context. The user interface allows the customer or employee to actually interact. And this is obviously what you see with Gen AI. The model behind the scenes, and usually it's an LLM, is powering the interaction under the hood. And then the outcome, arguably the most important, is the final result. And that is what creates value for the user. So those are the 4 elements that we like to talk about.
This is a great opportunity to get kind of both perspectives on those 4 components that Christine touched on, Paul. Data, user interface, the models, the large language models, and the outcomes itself. Let's start with data from your perspective. What's important for the viewers to take away
here? Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, right? I mean, I think most people already have your account and customer data within your CRMs and something like a Salesforce. But when we start want to make different decisions and how we want to decide on how we want to engage with our customers in a different way, it really becomes important to see their whole footprint, right? Their whole engagement data. What are their activities? What are they interested in? And those things typically reside in other systems. So Salesforce provides a way, obviously, to have the data that you already have in Salesforce there and available to you. But leveraging something like a MuleSoft can be extremely powerful to get data from these other systems that I mentioned about, to bring it in and unify and identify that customer in a way that we can start making more meaningful decisions with AI.
Makes sense. And Christine, when we talk about the user interface, so those end users, is that the Salesforce, or how does Salesforce see that? The Salesforce, that meaning the salespeople themselves. How does Salesforce conceive of that?
Yeah. Good question. So we've launched something called Einstein Copilot, which is our new user-friendly UI that lives inside of sales, service, and marketing with many roles across the company, being able to utilize this as their UI for AI and accessing AI. And so one concrete example is Copilot for service. As a service agent, you're able to rely on the Copilot to take actions on your behalf, to leverage AI-driven bots to create email responses for you that are AI-generated, really speeding up that time to be able to resolve a case or get back to a customer. And so we're seeing just it adding productivity across our entire product stack.
That third component that Christine mentioned, the model or the large language model, Paul, from your perspective, what's important to retain here?
Yeah, I think the important thing is how much is provided to you in terms of a customer wanting to implement AI. So we've talked a lot about the integration and the data challenge. If you think about it, if you try to do this on your own, right, how are you going to model the data? What data do you need to make these decisions? How are you going to do that in a secure way? And I think, between Data Cloud and the Einstein platform, they provided a way to they figured that out for you, and it's extendable, right? So even if you have additional data that you want to bring into it, you're able to do that. So I think that, they've figured a lot of that out for you. It's stuff that you don't have to think about. Otherwise, leveraging other tools and kind of taking a do-yourself kind of method, you would have to figure that on your own. And that's pretty powerful if you're trying to bring AI to the market a fast way.
Exactly. And then, Christine, that final building block or final component, so to speak, outcomes, sometimes called inference in the AI world. What's important to understand about that from the Salesforce point of view?
Well, the CRM is home to many high impact sales, service, and marketing outcomes, right? We talked about these: sending an email, answering a chat, that a lot of that lives in CRM. But many customers live in a world with disparate systems across the enterprise as well. So think about refunds, think about replacements, rescheduling. Those outcomes also need to happen outside of CRM and all of those third-party systems.
Paul and Christine, thinking about the end user, the sales folks, out in the field or the inside sales, wherever they may sit, is there anything to say about some of the maybe change management that might be required for these folks who are going to get their hands on some of these solutions, presumably make their work either easier, more rewarding, more efficient, etc.? Paul, what are you seeing in the field in your engagements around that?
Yeah, I think, it's more to enable salespeople, right? I think, by and large, sales processes may stay the same in terms of, kind of going through the various stages they need to go through as they work with a client. But I think what's important, and now when you introduce AI, is they're able to make better decisions. So one example I will say is, previously AI was very predictive, and those predictive analytics were based on a set of data that was available at the time, right? And as we talk about the importance of data and integrating that data and allowing something like generative AI to kind of make decisions, maybe help salespeople with those communications and how they interact with the customer, can drastically change the sales process with maybe not changing the kind of stages that they've gone through traditionally, right? So I think that's the change we see. It's better to enable the salespeople. It doesn't necessarily need to be a drastic change to kind of how you run your process, but just arming you with better data, better decisions, better communications, and more tailored to the customers that you're actually working.
Yeah, Christine, I can imagine from a salesperson's point of view, it can be really clunky to go, on the call, to go searching for that data. You can't get your hands on it, etc. Not to mention all the other processes that these solutions can really enable.
That's absolutely right. We see this heavily across sales and service. And even before the AI inflection point, having a single view and a single pane of glass across the customer really helps those salespeople and service agents better service their customer and provide more personalized service. But now inject AI, it becomes even more important. And it's really equipping the sellers and the service agents with co-pilots, as I mentioned before, so they can operate within their native environment, right? Maybe it's a CRM, maybe it's Service Cloud, and draw AI in directly from where they work. And so that's the value of co-pilot. It sits right in Sales Cloud, right in Service Cloud to help them take advantage of AI. And yeah, change management is a huge component of that.
We've been chatting with Paul Kersey with Apicero, Christine Uli with Salesforce. Folks, we have a few minutes left, and I wanted to get a couple more questions in before we have to sign off. And I always like to kind of look to the future and really get your ideas about what might happen kind of in the near-term future, 12 to 18 months or so. Let's think about that. But also, I also want to kind of frame it up by thinking about how integration can support what we've talked about today, and that Salesforce Customer 360 and the data that's all important, as we've kind of discussed today. So, Paul, let's start with you. When you look ahead, what's got you excited, and what can folks who are listening, what can they think about steps to take so that they're ready for this kind of AI revolution that's upon all of us?
Yeah, I think the thing that excites me is I definitely see a shift on how we've done integration and where integration is going. And what I mean by that, again, is coming back to the fact that historically we've done integrations to facilitate business workflow, right? Facilitate a need at the time you need it. And I'm starting to see integration being more important around having data available to make better decisions in an automated fashion. And so there's definitely that shift. And I think the good news is if you've already been on your API and integration journey, that's great. You're probably already ahead because you can leverage a lot of that already, right? Versus if you're new to this, you still have a path to get there quickly and leveraging a platform, like we said, like MuleSoft that, provides the connectors and stuff to these systems to get to the data that you need and insert it in something like a data cloud to start leveraging Einstein to make decisions. So I think depending on where you're at with your integration journey, there's still a quick path to get there. And then I'm just excited about the overall future of just kind of how we do stuff with that data, right? So we talk a lot about the ingress, but once we've segmented our customers and how we want to interact with them or make decisions with that data, leveraging the same platforms, we can still do a lot with that by sending data to other systems and enabling our sales teams to make better decisions and communicate better with our customers. So I think I'm really excited to see kind of that shift on just kind of request reply integration to maybe more event driven streaming type data integrations to make better use of that data.
Excellent. Thanks, Paul. Christine, the big goal, of course, better business outcomes. One of the main stepping stones, as we discussed today, Salesforce Customer 360 and the integration really that makes that possible. Thinking about the next 12 to 18 months, Christine, what are you excited about as far as AI goes, better sales processes, and just AI in general?
I think we'll see more customers start to try to take advantage of AI and start to look deeper into where their data lives across the organization and take advantage of that data. And in conversations with customers, what we often encourage them to do is actually start with the customer experience. So actually take a look at what is the customer experience that your business is offering today and whatever stakeholder that is, whether it's your patient, your customer, your employee, and be realistic around how disjointed that experience is and really understand kind of in the shoes of that customer. And what you'll start to notice is opportunities to connect and make that experience a bit more seamless. And AI can only accelerate this.
Excellent. Thanks, Christine. As I mentioned, we've been talking with Paul Kersey, Apicera, Christine Uli with Salesforce. Paul and Christine, I'd love to ask you each to kind of sum up the key takeaways you really want the viewers for today's session to walk away with. And Paul, if you're game, let's start with you.
Yeah, love to. Thank you. Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is I know a lot of people understand what some of the AI capabilities are, right? What it can do for my business. But I think a lot of people are still thinking about, what's that mean for me? Like, how much work is that? How do I keep my data secure and stuff like that? So a key takeaway for me is we've talked about some platforms today like MuleSoft, Data Cloud, and Salesforce that's figured a lot of that out for you, right? Especially around the security front. We've talked about how MuleSoft can, integrate data from multiple systems into Data Cloud securely. You can monitor that data, making sure that the data is accurate in real time, things like that. And as well as, the trust layer that Salesforce has built upon that, making sure, your customer data and stuff is kept secure while making the decisions that it makes. So I think a lot of the things that people are probably thinking about AI, I think a lot of these platforms have already kind of addressed that. And as I mentioned earlier, with the integration challenge, right? No matter where you're at with that, there is a path forward. And you could start small or you can leverage what you already have. But the thing is, there is a path. And, a partner like us at Apicera and NTT would love to be able to kind of partner with you and help you with that journey.
Excellent. Thanks, Paul. Christine Uli with Salesforce, you get the last word. What are your key takeaways for our viewers today?
I would say it can be overwhelming. And I think that's why we try to distill it down to the 4 elements and try to make a recipe of something that's really conflated in the market today. And again, coming back to data, UI, model, and outcome. We talked a lot about data today inside of CRM, outside of CRM, connecting it securely, monitoring all of that data. We can offer that with Salesforce, with MuleSoft, and taking advantage of your third-party systems. So that's one. Number 2 is the UI. With Einstein Copilot, it's bringing AI into the place that these folks work on a daily basis, into Sales Cloud, into Service Cloud. So that's the benefit there. With the model, Paul mentioned the Einstein trust layer. It's leaning on what Salesforce can offer. It's also bringing your own model, whether you're using OpenAI or something else. And then it all comes down to that fourth part of the recipe, which is the outcome. And if anything, I would suggest people start by thinking really clearly about what is the outcome they're looking to drive, taking a look at their customer experience and how disjointed it is today, and reverse engineering how they can improve that with the other three pieces of the recipe.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Unfortunately, we are at the end of our time for this session. I want to give a big thanks again to our speakers, Christine Uli with Salesforce, Paul Kersey with Apicero NTT Data. Thanks so much for your insights. Really great information. And of course, a big thanks to Salesforce for making today's event possible. Now, before we go, I want to remind our viewers, you can take advantage of the additional resources section in your player. You can download lots of great information about this topic if you're ready to accelerate your AI journey. If you're ready to start your AI journey, as Paul mentioned, no matter where you are, you can get started. And there's a lot of help in that resources section. So do take advantage of that. And with that, we're at the end of our time for Salesforce and CIO Marketing Services. Jim Malone saying, thanks everyone for tuning in.